Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Civilian Marksmanship Program, also known as the CMP, was created in 1903 by President Theodore Roosevelt, who felt too many Americans were at best mediocre marksmen. President Roosevelt ordered the Army to work with gun clubs and other civilian groups to improve the country's national defense by teaching marksmanship. In 1996, Congress established the CMP as a federally chartered 501c3 corporation that places its highest priority on serving youth through gun safety and marksmanship activities that encourage personal growth and build life skills. These member organizations range from the Army's Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, 4-H clubs, Boy Scout groups, summer youth camps, and gun clubs. This amendment would allocate additional surplus military weapons from the Department of the Navy and the Department of the Air Force to the CMP to further their mission of educating youth on the importance of gun safety and marksmanship activities. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this amendment.
You recognize for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise in opposition to this amendment, which will put American lives at risk. The gentleman from the other side of the aisle made a point to talk about the Civilian Marksmanship Program and what it was intended to do and what it is intended to do. This amendment would make our country more dangerous by adding another responsibility and priority to the program, to not just train people, but to essentially become an arms dealer, putting more weapons on the streets of this country. It'll increase the number of military firearms that'll be put into circulation by the Civilian Marksmanship Program. It'll increase the types of firearms that can be put into circulation by the CMP, and it'll transform an entity that's existed for a century, intended to focus on gun safety and education, into an arms dealer. Since 1996, purchasing a firearm from the Civilian Marksmanship Program has required a person to certify that they are purchasing a gun only for their personal use. Just like purchasing a gun from any federally licensed gun dealer, it is illegal to buy a handgun intending to sell it to somebody else. This amendment would change that. It would allow military guns to be bought and then immediately resold. We aren't just talking about World War II rifles or pistols, such as the CMP has sold for about 100 years, like it currently is. This amendment will allow modern military and government shotguns and some rifles, too, to be sold. To save lives, Democrats have now twice passed the bill that would expand background checks on every gun sale, and here my Republican colleagues are wanting to make it even easier to dodge the rules that we do have. Recirculating retired service weapons already has inherent risk. More than 52,000 retired law enforcement firearms that have been resold to the public have been found at crime scenes between 2006 and 2022. 52,000 resold guns. Now they want to make the number even more. We have more guns than people in this country. We have a gun violence problem in this country. The solution is in the federal government putting more guns on the streets of this country. I reserve the remainder of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Alabama is recognized.
Not reserved.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
You know, the interesting thing is the sponsor of this amendment, Mr. Pfluger, in his home state of Texas, there were 22 mass shootings in just the 4 first months of this year. You know, I'm confused on where this amendment's coming from. Why do we need to task the CMP with selling more guns with less restrictions in a country where we have a gun violence problem? It's interesting. You know, it was one thing when the guns in question were relics of World War II and World War I, but this amendment takes it several steps further, increases the potential number of weapons being transferred, expands the type of weapons to include modern .45 caliber pistols and shotguns, and it adds sources to every federal department and agency so they can offload their firearms to secondary market, including folks like the FBI or ICE. But we got to dig deeper here because the CMP is a nonprofit, and this new rule for the CMP, where they would sell massive amounts of firearms, is actually going to help gun manufacturers make mountain loads of money by putting more guns into circulation. It's interesting. I looked it up. On a list of the 22 major sponsors of the CMP, 6 are gun manufacturers. Companies like Colt, Glock in Springfield, and then 7 make gun accessories, and they produce ammunition. That means that the gun manufacturers funding the CMP stand to benefit from the CMP selling even more weapons and having less restrictions. It's the same old on every issue. Finding loopholes for corporations to make more money when we have kids dying on the streets due to gun violence. The research shows that more guns lead to more violence. Most Republicans, most Democrats, and my favorite one, most NRA members are for common sense gun reform like universal background checks. Instead of wasting time on figuring out ways to make quasi-federal agencies sell more guns on the streets, why don't we partner on that? I oppose this amendment and urge my colleagues to vote no. I reserve the remainder of my time.
Gentleman from Florida reserves. The gentleman from Alabama is recognized. Gentleman from Alabama reserves. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
How much time do I have left?
Gentleman has 1 minute remaining.
Well, I'll take the 1 minute to say this. This is one of many amendments I've come to debate this Congress where it seems like it was just written by the gun industry and the gun manufacturers. And it's disappointing because when gun violence happens, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. Bullets don't care who you voted for. It impacts every single one of us in all of our districts. And I'm a member of Gen Z, but I call my generation the mass shooting generation because when I visit the schools in my district, they tell me that they go through more school shooter drills than fire drills. In fact, we just had a shooting at the Florida State University where a student used a retired service weapon to go into the school and kill people. This is not what we need to be doing at this time. You can argue, on the merits of the CMP and the work they do on gun safety, but adding another priority where they can sell more guns with less restrictions in our country, where we have this problem where we lose over 100 lives a day due to gun violence, is disgraceful. And my hope is that everyone will vote no on this amendment.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Alabama is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The gentleman is conflating gun violence statistics at large with the Civilian Marksmanship Program, and they are not the same thing. The Civilian Marksmanship Program is selling basically antique weapons, surplus weapons from the various services, to collectors who buy them as collectors, and the proceeds go into a trust fund that then funds the gun safety and marksmanship training that I talked about earlier. It is a very worthwhile program. I urge its support, and with that, I yield the balance of my time.